When the world feels unstable, unfair, or frightening, something in us wants to respond. We feel the anger, we feel the grief, we feel the urgency. And at some point, the question becomes, what do I do with all of this? Because staying in survival mode isn't sustainable, but neither is running ourselves into the ground trying to fix everything. This is the final episode in our 5-part series, When the World Feels Like Too Much. We've talked about protecting sleep. We've talked about movement. We've talked about understanding your nervous system and working with it. We've talked about nourishment. And now we're talking about action. Not frantic action, not performative action, not action fueled purely by fear or rage. We're talking about aligned action. In this episode, we're going to explore why taking effective action actually protects your nervous system, how to discern what is yours to carry and what isn't, and how to show up for this moment in a way that is sustainable, grounded, and connected to your values. Because everyone has a role, but no one is meant to carry it all. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Self-Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD-ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing, and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. So, taking aligned action, that's what we're here to talk about. And as I shared in the intro, this is part 5 of our 5-part series on what to do when the world is too much. I want to start by talking about how important it is to take some kind of action. And I'm not talking about specific actions to take yet. I'll get into that towards the end of this episode. But first, I want to talk about the importance of taking some kind of effective action. What comes to mind for me is I remember, I believe it was Brene Brown. I could be wrong. I looked for it online and I couldn't find it. But I do remember either her or someone talking about the negative impact on Hurricane Katrina survivors who could not go into their community and rebuild. Because I think it was that hurricane, it could have been a different one, but I'm pretty sure it was Katrina, where people were taken out of the community and moved up north, even to Minnesota, and housed, which was seen as a loving, helpful thing to do. People were trying to help them, give them homes, whatever. However, they were not there for the rebuild. So that when they went back, if they went back, they carried so much more trauma, and a lot of them were more likely to meet criteria for PTSD because they were not involved in the rebuild. They were not involved in the action. That taking action is important because it's one way that we can complete the fight or flight or shutdown responses. So in our nervous system episode, you heard me break this down a little bit more. I'll just do it quickly here. You can watch that episode. I think it was part 3 in the series, so a couple episodes ago. But when we are experiencing or perceiving a threat, whether it's immediate life-threatening danger or we perceive that it is, our nervous system will go into protective responses. Usually first fight or flight, and then eventually make its way into shutdown if it feels like the threat is not going away, maybe even vacillating between the two of those. And we see that a lot with complex trauma survivors who will vacillate a lot between fight or flight and shutdown, which isn't sustainable because eventually you start to develop illnesses and have other problems from not being in the reparative state of ventral vagal, where it's safe enough to rest, digest, and connect, and your organs can repair, and you can truly get solid sleep and rest for all those purposes. So we're not going to get into it. And I do want to say, if you are in the middle of a place where you're an undocumented immigrant and ICE is outside looking for you, even if you've not committed any crimes, which we know is what's happening here. I know that's what's happening here from my own neighbors. What I can tell you is that you probably need to be in a protective state, and that's okay. this episode might not be for you so much right now. Right now, your job is to stay safe as you can, and to seek help from your neighbors as much as possible. But we'll get into that a little bit more towards the end of the episode about how people are helping. And maybe those are maybe not things you're going to do, but things you can find to support you in this. So for those of us who are not being targeted, a lot of our nervous systems feel unsettled. Just the other day, I noticed jets flying overhead, and I was like, what is that noise? Is that a helicopter? Because I know St. Paul and Minneapolis have had helicopters, and I'm in a first-rank suburb, which is touches Minneapolis, but uh, I was like, hadn't heard helicopters, but it didn't sound like a helicopter. And it was cloudy, so I couldn't quite see what it was. And I was talking to one of my clients about it. They're like, oh, military jets, because we saw them. It made this kind of noise. And I was like, yes. And I will tell you, my nervous system, when I first noticed that sound, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And that is the fight or flight response. That's normal. It's just that at some point, when we realize that we're safe, taking action to be part of the solution can actually help us. It can keep us from developing PTSD because we're regulating our nervous systems by doing something. And again, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that this is something everyone can do. It may not be safe for some of you to take action. And so that's why we're talking about effective action, right? Just like it might not be safe to come out of your fight or flight or shutdown responses right now, it might not be safe for you to go get your neighbors groceries because they are some of the people being targeted here. So we're talking about effective action. And so before we get into taking effective action, what that looks like, what options are, I want to name there are so many different ways you can take effective action right now that is aligned with your values, with your skills, with your capability, and with whatever abilities you have. I notice there are some people who are shaming people who aren't out in the streets protesting. I notice it mostly online. And there are some people who are maybe criticizing others for the way they're doing something. And here's what I want to say about that before I get into how I really like to talk about this. All of us have our individual abilities, and all of us have our individual capacity. And we cannot keep serving in the way that we're choosing to serve if we are not also getting rest. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I've noticed several of my clients who live right in the areas where Renee Good was murdered or Alex Preddy was murdered. Like, their nervous systems are fried because they've been out there with their whistles constantly trying to protect their Black and brown neighbors, their immigrant neighbors. And it just wasn't sustainable to be out there all the time and constantly hearing the whistles. I get the whistles are intended to help notify your neighbors who are here legally and aren't criminals, or even those who maybe aren't here legally but aren't criminals. Being an undocumented immigrant is not a felony, it's a misdemeanor. So whatever purpose that those whistles have, they tend to be dysregulating people's nervous systems. And so what I've been seeing from my therapy office is we all have to honor our individual capacity, because if we push beyond it, then we're no longer able to help at all. And I'm already seeing some people in that situation who are having to completely take time off work and just disconnect entirely because it was too much. So I really want to name, it's important that we honor each other's capacity and ability. And I get it. I'm a white woman. I'm a middle-class white woman. And people are like, well, some people don't have that choice. You know what? You're right. And those of us who do need to take it so we can keep helping. Otherwise, if we all are fried, then no one is there to help. It's really important to understand that. The other thing I want to say is this effort, this marathon that is what's going on in Minnesota right now and across the country, wherever ICE is present, wherever federal agents, and it's also Border Patrol, wherever they are taking people off of the streets, even people who are citizens, and not just Black and brown people, not that that's okay, but all kinds of citizens. We all have a role to play. And It's like we're in an orchestra. We each have our own instrument. And that instrument that we are playing in this moment to meet this moment is the one that it captures our skill set and we have capacity for it. But if you've ever listened to orchestra music or watched an orchestra live, you've seen, especially if you've watched an orchestra live, even if it's like I go to my niece's band concerts, and I guess they're maybe not an orchestra, but just even a band, and you watch them play live. While some of the flutes or clarinets are taking a breath, the others are still carrying the tune. And so we are not meant in this fight to be constantly on. It's not possible. It'd be like trying to play the flute for the entire piece without a single breath. You would die if it wasn't for the thing in your body that won't let you do that to yourself. with the playing of the flute. But with this, it could happen. You could make yourself sick. You could make yourself so depressed that you get suicidal. So it's really important that we honor our need to take a rest, not just for our own health and wellness, but of course for that, but also so you can stay in it, so you can continue being part of the music the way that is most aligned with who you are, your capacity, and your abilities, as well as your talents. So let's talk about some of the ways to take effective action right now. I know everyone loves to see people out in the streets protesting, and I think it's great. I love it. It's exciting, and it's not everyone's deal. I'm going to tell you what, I feel really guilty that it's not my deal. I've been working with that. And the reason it's not my deal is I see at least 22 to 24 therapy clients a week, not to mention other clients I work with who just have ADHD in my program. And if I am out in the streets on the weekends protesting or on a Friday, I get too dysregulated and can then not do the work I do as a therapist to support the people going through it. Some are immigrants, some are people on the front lines protesting, some are other people just really, really struggling right now as we watch this happen. And especially white people. I want to honor that a lot of Black and brown folks, Indigenous folks, this isn't all that wild to them. I mean, it maybe is a little more public and maybe more intense how they have like tear gas and other chemicals in the streets and that kind of stuff, the helicopters overhead. But the reality is law enforcement has a long history of targeting people who have darker skin. In fact, that's the whole reason the police came to be, was because the slave owners did not want their slaves going north to freedom. And so the police were there to capture them and bring them back. So there's a long history. And hear me clearly, I am not saying all police officers are bad. I'm not saying that is why current day police officers went into the field of policing. I'm not going to get into that. And I want to acknowledge that for a lot of people in Black and brown bodies, this is not necessarily new for them. But what is new is for white people to be seeing it and actually experiencing it ourselves. Not to mention the intensity is quite a bit higher when you have people with like grenades and tear gas in the streets and helicopters overhead. So there's that. But I want to name that first and foremost. And it's really important as white people that we honor that about the people that we're trying to help, that we're not being these white saviors, because this is not the first rodeo for people who live in Black and brown bodies. And it's important that we honor that. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't even fully know. I do my work to be anti-racist, but I can acknowledge that there are things I don't know or understand as I continue to learn to be anti-racist. So keeping that in mind, protesting, yes, that can be a wonderful way to communicate that this isn't okay. And the protests are working. We know that the president, he's got a lot of ego, right? That's what narcissism is. So they don't like to look bad. So when you have thousands and thousands of people in the street, and then people around the world see that and celebrate it and are like, say bad things about the president, that doesn't go well for him. especially when after the killing of Alex Preddy, even the NRA came out against the administration because of what they said about Alex having a gun on him, the administration said. So he doesn't like to be that unpopular. So being in the streets protesting can help in the sense that it makes him see like there is hard data about how many thousands of people have been in the streets here in Minnesota and across the world, quite frankly. And thank you to those of you who are doing that in other locations. And there are other ways to meet this moment. Not everyone can protest. I have a client on disability who's not very mobile. Like she could not go sit or stand at a protest like that. Her body would not allow it. She has a physical disability. I have other clients who are neurodivergent who, to be in a big crowd like that, like they actually cannot do it. I actually, with my neurodivergence, struggle with it, but I have other reasons for why I'm not choosing that path. So what are other ways besides protesting? Well, one is donating money. And I get it. Not everyone can do that. My clients on disability do not have extra money right now because a lot of them lost their food stamps because the administration, and they also lost their Medicaid because the administration. And so they barely can afford their housing, let alone to eat. So this again won't be for everybody, but those of us who can do it can do it. And there are so many ways you can donate money. I'll put a website in the show notes that specifically helps immigrants right now. It's a fast action organization where they're helping with it, but there's other options there. I will say that local churches and yoga studios are doing things to raise money, even for individual families, or even gathering food for food shelves. But some of the really cool stuff happening here is that there are organizations like my yoga studio, or there's a counseling center connected to my yoga studio, or the Unitarian Universalist community I go to, or other churches. I saw today, I was looking up a dance studio for a client, and they even had something for mutual aid on theirs. So there are lots of opportunities to give to individual families. My yoga studio has adopted either 8 or 10 families, I think, where we are all contributing monthly to help pay their rent and get food for them. And then there are some people who are retired who are mobile enough to be able to go out and buy those groceries or do their laundry for them because they can't go to a laundromat right now because it's not safe. And so there are lots of opportunities in that, whether you're donating the money, whether you're helping people get groceries or driving people to their doctor's appointments so they're safer because they're with a white person, or whether you're doing their laundry, whatever it is. There are lots of ways to help in this kind of bracket of helping individual families, donating to food shelves. Second Harvest Food is a big food shelf in Minnesota. So if you're wanting to donate to them, my dad pointed out to me that Ramadan is coming up, which is a holy day for Muslims. We have a large Somali community here that is being targeted. And I'm not saying other Muslims aren't, but maybe look for a mutual aid organization that's providing food for those communities so that they can celebrate a holiday that is so meaningful to them. Whatever it is, there is a spot for you in that if that is the instrument you play. Like I said, you could be a volunteer. You could volunteer for a food shelf. You could volunteer to take people to the doctor or a grocery store. You could also be a legal observer. And that's what the people with the whistles are. They are, first of all, notifying their neighbors that are not criminals, like, hey, ICE is present, stay in your home. But you could also just observe by filming what's going on. Just be very careful when you're doing that, because there are ICE agents that will come up and rough you up. And even if you don't do anything, they will still arrest you and say that you assaulted them. So just be very clear. Make sure you have a buddy who is also filming so that they can film what's happening to you. Make sure you're being safe and purposeful, intentional about how you're doing this. I know that No Kings and Indivisible have a lot of information on how you can be safe in these moments, but being a legal observer can even be separate from going to a protest. Also, if you don't want to go to a big protest, I will tell you not all, but many of the highway bridges in the Twin Cities will have protesters on any given day. And whether you're up on one of those bridges with a sign protesting as everyone's driving home from work, or like me, you're in a car and you're waving and honking at the people up there to encourage them because it's stinking cold, right? And, give them some love and support for being able to do that. That's another option for you. And then we get into some of the maybe quieter ways to meet this moment. And these are not any less important. One of them is speaking truth. Look for reputable sources. I will tell you the one that seems to be most accurately reporting based on my own experience, the experience of my office mate who lives in the middle of this, and the experience of my clients who live right in the middle. I would say MPR News, Minnesota Public Radio News. It's like NPR News. If you Google it, it'll come up. Has been great they have like a running kind of thing where they follow everything that's going on. That has been accurate and does not seem to be right or left leaning, but actually stating the facts. Now, I will say, if you're someone who thinks it's left leaning, to think it's not okay that someone was shot in the street unarmed, then like that, we're just going to disagree. Because I don't actually think this is about politics. I think this has now become about morality. And so I'm not your people. You're probably not even listening if that's you. But if that's you, you're going to have a problem with NPR News. You're probably going to have a problem with anything that isn't Fox News. And maybe that's an unkind, gross generalization. But I will tell you, I have watched little clips on Fox News, and they're straight lying. They say that he pulled the weapon when the videos don't show that. So if that's you, you're not who I'm talking to. But NPR News has been fantastic. NPR, National Public Radio, their news channel has been okay, not as great. The Minnesota one has been a lot better. But spread truthful information. Be intentional about your source. Treat it like you're writing a research paper. Would you just well, maybe you did because you're in college, you just had so much to write, or high school or whatever. But would you wrongly cite your source if you were writing an important essay or paper that you were going to publish in the newspaper? Probably not. So be really intentional about your sources. You can even fact check things on Snopes, although I don't know if Snopes is keeping up with all the stuff that's going on. That used to be a really good fact check thing. I haven't used it recently because I'm in the middle of things, so it doesn't feel as important for me to do that. I will also say Heather Cox Richardson has been a great source of what's going on, and she's a historian, so she gives a great perspective on what's going on. She's actually one of the lead historians on the Civil War and especially the Republican Party, particularly the movement conservatives who used to be part of the Democrats and then shifted over to the Republicans through the Nixon years and Reagan and up till present day as MAGA. So find truth and speak it. Don't spread misinformation. Don't share something that you know isn't true or that you can't prove. I've heard people say, oh, the rumor is they're doing this at the internment camps or the detention centers. I'm like, that's a rumor. Stop saying that. Like, that's not okay. Get your facts straight before you spread information. It's really important. But share truth. Share truth. And then there's getting even deeper. Be kind and compassionate. It can be hard to feel those feelings, especially if your nervous system is on edge, especially if you are in your fight or flight response or shutdown response. And I'm not talking to people who are in actual imminent life-threatening danger. I'm talking about the rest of us. Be kind to each other. Greet your neighbors. I don't care if you're in Minnesota or not. Greet your neighbors. Smile at each other. Maybe give each other the benefit of the doubt. And listen, I understand compassion can be really hard for people who voted for this. And the reality is, number one, I don't think a lot of them really understood that this was what they were voting for or didn't really believe it would happen. Like, it was just like, no, that would never happen. And I'm not saying we don't get to be mad at them because that's legit. But we can both be angry and be kind and compassionate in alignment with our own values. We don't have to add to the hate by hating on these people. I understand the urge to be like, you got us into this effing mess. I get it. I totally get it. And the reality is that's not helping. That is fueling the hate and anger. It's fueling it on the earth. It's fueling it in the air, in the vibration, but it's also fueling it in the universe so that the vibration that you are bringing, if that's the space you're holding, is one of hate. Work through the anger. It's valid. And if you have a part of you that feels hateful, work through that too, because I get how you got there. It's just not useful to get out of this situation that we're in right now. Compassion is the way. We can't all be liberated and hate each other. The way to be liberated is to find compassion and healing with accountability. I'm not saying that compassion means no accountability and, oh, I love them, it's fine, no problem. No, compassion is different than that. It's saying, you know what, I get how they got there. And maybe that's empathy also, but like, I have compassion for them. I can't imagine what their life would be like to choose that, or how horrible they must be feeling right now. I think they should have some accountability. And my heart goes out to them. That's a practice. It's not something that comes easy. But doing that can even be some of the work right now, or maybe just being kind to people that you see on the street, if that is out of reach. Last but not least, I'll actually share what I think is the most important thing that we all can do. Do your inner healing work. Listen, I'm a trauma therapist, and so I understand that there's a risk of me of me being a hammer and seeing everything as a nail. I get it. However, as a trauma therapist, what's happening now very much looks like the world's trauma that is in all of our bodies through epigenetics and intergenerational trauma being acted out very publicly. This feels like so many unhealed wounds and so many people not knowing how to feel their feelings and work with them, not just talk about them, not just analyze them, but feel them and work with them and resolve the wounds beneath. It feels like so many people that don't know how to do that, that's creating all of this. So one of the most important things that you can do, and the more of us that do it, the sooner we will usher in the new world that we want, one where there is more compassion and appreciation and accountability for people who don't do that. But we can't do that until we are more of us doing this work to be in alignment with your highest values and not just with the people you like. It's very easy to be in alignment with our values, with our closest friends. It's very easy to be in alignment with our favorite people. It's very easy to be in alignment with people who see eye to us. The challenge is how do we learn to be in alignment when someone is shouting at the top of their lungs, shouting as loud as they can about something that is so opposite of what we value? That's the work. And maybe before that, though, the work might be healing your wounds. And I'm mostly talking to white people here. Black and brown people, I'm not coming for you. You got enough wounds. I'm sure as hell not going to tell a single one of you what to do with your life. Perhaps finding a way to heal the trauma of being Black or brown in this country. Yes, if that's available to you. But I understand that's not always the case. And we white folks who carry all this and have enormous amounts of privilege in this lifetime, most of us have the wherewithal to do the work. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's so important. I'm getting a little preachy, so I'm going to take a breath. There are so many ways we can meet this moment, and I hope you can find one, whether it's one of the ones I named, or maybe it's two of them. But I want you to remember, you cannot play all the instruments in the orchestra. Pick one, pick two, but that's it. Maybe pick three if one of them is doing your inner work and donating money. Then maybe you could pick another one, fine. Or maybe you're a healer type like me, and so you're doing healing work with people. That's great. That counts too. When it's not about keeping score of who's doing the best job in meeting the moment. It's about doing what you can to pull us towards the world that we all want to see, or at least the majority of us. One where people are kind and loving to each other. One where people are held accountable for the shitty things they do. One where people aren't shamed when they do something shitty, but are instead guided to choose differently. One where everyone has enough instead of a few hoarding wealth and everyone else struggling, and some people starving and not even having clean water. Be the life, be the world that you want to usher in. And as you do that, as more of us do that, we will rise to meet this moment, and the change will come way faster than if it was only one or two of us doing it alone. Thank you so much for being here. This was a tough conversation, maybe, or a tough thing to hear. Know that I say it with compassion in my heart, because I truly know this. You are doing the absolute best you know how to do in this moment. I know that as a social worker. As a social worker, I've sat with people in some of their darkest times. I've sat with people who've done awful things that they regret, that they carry shame or humiliation around, but they're not bad people. They're people who were in tough circumstances and maybe made the only choice they had access to, or the only choice they knew how to make. It doesn't excuse the behavior. It doesn't mean there's not consequences. But I've seen people who've done what most people would judge as terrible things, have remorse, and truly want to do something different. And I suspect that you're no different. Whatever those things are that you've done that maybe make you feel make you not good enough, I can assure you, I know that you are doing the best you can. Could you choose to do something more than what you're doing? Perhaps. I don't know you. I don't know what your capacity is. I know that I look at a lot of moms right now who are working full time and have at least 2 kids and a spouse who, quote unquote, helps some when they're reminded to. I don't know. I don't know how much bandwidth you have to really do more than one of these things, if one. But do what you can. And we're going to usher in this amazing new world. If anything, spread the love that you can spread as far as you can. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you listening to all 5 episodes, and I hope it was helpful. That's my intention. I would love to hear feedback. You can shoot me an email, or you can comment or like or subscribe or follow my podcast, which is on YouTube or other places where you get your podcasts. So hang in there and take good care.